Coming up on District Wire News, the Japanese government responds to the latest blast at a nuclear power plant. While the search for survivors continues, we will have the full report straight ahead on one of the biggest quakes in recorded history.
And later, violence in a normally quiet district suburb. A murder and an assault of 2 women at a high-end workout clothing store shocks the community. District Wire News starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Stephanie Goldberg.
And I'm Catherine Katsonis.
The death toll in Japan after the 8.9 magnitude earthquake and tsunami has risen to almost 2,000 as of Monday afternoon. At least 2,300 people are still missing and 45 million people have no power. Greg Black from CNN has the latest news.
Plumes of thick white smoke over the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant Monday. The blast is the second at that facility since Saturday. Radiation levels outside the plant remain elevated. But the Japanese government says the radiation released in the blast does not pose any immediate safety or health risk. Still, people there aren't so sure.
I'm due to give birth soon. I want to know exactly what's going on at the nuclear plant. I'm scared.
Experts say the threat of a meltdown is still very real, despite ongoing efforts to cool the reactor's core with seawater. It's a task made even harder because the earthquake knocked out the facility's electricity. A massive tsunami flooded its backup generators.
Supposedly they had battery backups. They generally have on-site electrical generation. But what happened with that tsunami, I have no idea. I mean, we never anticipated that tsunami.
Meanwhile, as the search for survivors continues, Japan's Prime Minister made a plea for strength to his people.
I am confident that the Japanese people can be united to work together to weather this difficulty.
Nearly 70 countries around the world have pledged to dedicate emergency resources to the hardest-hit cities. I'm Greg Black reporting.
The Better Business Bureau is warning people to be careful when they donate to the victims of the Japanese disaster. The Bureau points out some key tips for donors to remember. Everyone should research organizations online, never click on links in email solicitations, and be wary of charities who are reluctant to answer questions. The Bureau is also reminding donors to make sure that the contribution is tax deductible.
In the aftermath of the earthquake and tsunami in Japan, monetary support is not the only concern. Russ Schubert has the full report on American University.
After the earthquake and tsunami hit Japan last Friday, many different groups have rushed to send support to the victims that were affected. Schools have turned into shelters where food and blankets are being distributed. The concern for American University is different than many international support groups. When disaster hits a country, like political uprising in Egypt and Libya, or natural disasters in New Zealand and Japan, one usually doesn't think of how students studying abroad are affected. Sarah DeMont, director of AU Abroad, talks about the students in Japan.
We contacted students the day everybody woke up and heard about the earthquake. We contacted our students right away. We did that, and I know SIS did it as well. Contacted them by email, and all the students were able to email us back and to say they were fine, which was very good news. We also heard immediately from Waseda University, and I believe that SIS also heard from Ritsumeikan, and they sent us an update just to generally say that, they were fine, no major damage, and that all the students were okay.
When problems occur in countries where AU students are abroad, the AU Study Abroad office needs to make quick decisions about whether or not to evacuate the students. AU is a very internationally influenced campus, so do these disasters turn into cultural experiences or endangering students' lives?
Like American students who study abroad right now in Japan, like in Tokyo, I think, probably, and it's a very good way for those students to learn that how this country, how these people, Japanese people, they get together and they support the local people who are suffering from the disaster. They can experience the great spirit from the country, and it's a very good way to experience their traditional culture.
Although these experiences might be a positive influence on understanding Japanese culture, American University students' safety is key.
We can become satisfied through all the experts that we have access to, that our students are safe, as safe as they can be, we're kind of cool with letting them decide for themselves whether or not they want to stay at a location. You know, for example, right now in Tokyo, life is very inconvenient, as one of our students has just written, but it's not unsafe.
So right now, the abroad students are very safe and have only been inconvenienced by the natural disaster. AU Abroad is still keeping a close eye on Japan and the development of the nuclear reactors and how they might affect students abroad. Russ Schubert for District Wire News.
Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker signed his controversial budget bill on Friday. Statewide protests broke out as a result of the bill being passed. The working class was hurt the most by this bill. This budget bill forbids unions to bargain collectively over pensions and health care and limits pay raises of public employees. The bill also requires each union to be recertified annually. Governor Walker was just voted into office, and residents are already discussing recalls. The recall cannot be placed into effect until January 3, 2012. The recall would require at least 540,000 signatures for a recall ballot to be placed in effect. There are 8 GOP senators who are currently eligible for recall.
4 postal workers at the post office branch in Bethesda are being treated for a possible contamination. The facility was shut down for hours Saturday after the workers reported that they were not feeling well. 1 employee broke out in a rash and 3 others followed. The workers were treated in an ambulance at the scene before being transported to a nearby hospital. Police investigators examined several packages and equipment, but said they found no signs of hazardous materials or contaminants.
The Bethesda community is remembering 30-year-old Jana Murray today after she was killed in popular clothing store Lululemon over the weekend. The Bethesda and Georgetown Lululemon locations have reopened today after being closed over the weekend. Kelsey Edgerly has more on the story.
A gruesome homicide inside Bethesda Rose Lululemon, a high-end yoga clothing store, has police searching for 2 masked men. Jana Murray, age 30, was found murdered early Saturday morning inside the upscale retail shop where she worked. A co-worker, age 27, was found nearby tied up after police say she was sexually assaulted. The 2 victims had closed the store at 9 p.m. on Friday and left a short time later, police said. But they soon returned when one of them realized that she had left something behind. Police believe the attack began as a robbery. Lululemon sits between the Papery, a stationery store, and an Apple retail store that has been buzzing this weekend with its hot new product, the iPad 2.
I pulled into the Apple store because iPad 2 was introduced this week, and I didn't get one last night, so I pulled in. Hopefully there'd be some iPads today. I pulled in about 7 o'clock, and I didn't see anything that went on inside the Lululemon store because apparently it happened last night. We saw him while I was standing in line at the Apple store. We saw the poor girl come out in the stretcher, looked badly bruised and beaten with blood on her face. But she was alive, thank God.
The store's large front windows were covered with sheets of paper. Friends and customers gathered outside the clothing store to light candles and lay flowers in memorial. Bethesda Row, with its mix of stores and restaurants, draws big crowds of pedestrians on weekend nights. Detectives are still searching for witnesses who may have been working at nearby stores on Friday evening. This is Kelsey Edgerly for District Wire News.
2 Virginia sheriff's deputies are recovering after a shooting in Buchanan County on Sunday. The deputies responded to a 911 call about a break-in at a junkyard. The gunman shot 2 deputies using a high-powered rifle when they arrived on the scene to investigate. 2 more deputies were shot after they started searching for the gunman. 2 of the deputies died. The suspect was shot and killed after a 2-hour manhunt.
The death toll for the New York tour bus crash has now risen to 15 people. 14 people were killed over the weekend after the bus crashed into a signpost, carving the bus in half. The bus was traveling on Interstate 95 to Chinatown. CNN has more on the story.
Dozens of emergency crews responded to this horrific scene on Interstate 95.
I never saw something that bad.
This eyewitness, who was about 200 yards from the fatal scene, says he saw passengers who were able to get out of the tour bus crying in disbelief.
Yes, they were yelling, oh my God, and they were and some people covered their face.
Officials say the bus, operated by Worldwide Tours Company, was coming from the Mohegan Sun Casino and was in the center lane when it struck a guardrail to avoid a tractor trailer in the left lane. The bus then slammed into a signpost.
The bus turned on its side, and as a result, the pole of the stanchion, in essence, cut the bus in half. We had about 7 or 8 people pinned in the rear of the bus that we had to actually cut out by either removing seats or we cut a hole in the roof of the bus.
The majority of the injured were taken to Jacobi Medical Center. Meanwhile, the staff at St. Barnabas Hospital who are treating some of the injured say their hearts go out to the victims' families.
Accidents like this are very heart-wrenching and emotional, and they really do tug at your heartstrings. But you have to dig deep, and you have to do what we're trained to do.
Coming up after the break, should college students be allowed to vote where they go to school? We'll tell you what one politician said about it and what a new bill that would make it hard for students to make it to the polls.
And a group of unlucky Girl Scouts get scammed. We'll explain after the break.